If we continue to do something that doesn't feel authentic, the company won't continue. It just fundamentally won't. The longer we wait to have some of these uncomfortable conversations, generally we're going to blow up at some point. And all sorts of really awesome things can happen within the family business, and you can still achieve personal goals at the same time.
There's just something in family businesses that we know the right buttons to push, but we're also assuming that what we need is what other people need.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fearless Family Business Show, where we want to help you to strengthen the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle that you want in your family business. My name is Adam Hill. I am your host, and my guests today are Katie Rucker and Jenny Dinnen. And I am really excited to share this episode because every time I talk with Jenny and Katie, which I've talked with them a number of times, we actually met each other in Southern California at a family business council many years ago, and we've stayed in touch ever since. And I am always energized, always just have this renewed passion for family business every time I talk with Jenny and Katie, because it's just something they're passionate about, and there's so much energy around it. And we've talked about such great topics today about what the vision is for the future of family business. Not only are they the co-presidents, that's right, co-presidents of MacKenzie Corporation, a second-generation 40-year-old market research company in Southern California, but they've also launched their own new company designed to help family businesses with their long-term legacies, next-generation leaders to fit into their role and find their voice. And that company is called the Next Gen Collaborative. And you can find them at nextgencollaborative.com. And that's where you can reach out to them. And I highly suggest you do. We talk a lot about the idea of legacy of family business in this episode. And we talk about it in the sense of what that family business represents and what it can represent in terms of our legacy. Are we thinking about legacy in terms of the past and how we want to maintain the founding vision of our founders? Or are we thinking about it in the future as it relates to many generations down the line, or some combination of those two? And Jenny and Katie have a very, very powerful vision of what family business can represent in that world. And I think it's something that we can all learn a lot from. I certainly did in this episode, and I know you will too, especially around the ideas of taking that family asset, that business that may be something that the next generations don't necessarily want, and maybe turning it into something more that transcends that idea of a business and turns it into an enterprise, or maybe even an ecosystem that helps support the broader family economically with new opportunities, new empowerment, and all sorts of opportunities that they can use to grow into that enterprise. It's a really, really powerful episode. This was one of my most exciting conversations. I love talking to Jenny Dinnen and Katie Rucker because of the passion and the knowledge and the experience they bring to this world. I think you're going to love it. So I hope you enjoy this wide-reaching conversation with Katie Rucker and Jenny Dinnen. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad to have my guests, Katie Rucker and Jenny Dinnen here. Thank you both for being here. I'm excited to talk with you guys finally on the podcast together, because we have, we've talked a lot, we've shared a lot of stories, we have a lot of similar dynamics on where we're headed and just kind of our upbringing and family business. So this is an exciting conversation. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad the audience is here to listen to it. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So I'd love to kind of jump in. I mean, this is a very unique dynamic in the world of family business too. Not unique in the sense that families working together, but families leading together in really the presidency role, the leaders, the top role in the company, owning the company. And I understand 50-50, right?
We are 50-50 now, effective this week. Yeah.
That's great. Congratulations. So
changes.
and I'd love to know, I mean, I want to get to that point of kind of talking about what it means to be co-presidents in a company and share that leadership role. But I want to start kind of go back in time and maybe talk a little bit about your relationship growing up as sisters. What was that like? What was your relationship like? How did that go?
Oh gosh, Kate and I. So, so Katie and I are twin sisters, and so also we are the only siblings in our family. So there are not other siblings. We're actually third generation twins. So it's just the two of us growing up, and we both, I'll flat out, we did not get along growing up. We could not be more different. We look different. And maybe actually, I think we got along, and it was probably about
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
About high school and probably any siblings, but we only know what we know. So we are very different, like I said, and just had different strengths, different uniqueness. And when you're in high school, I think different is not necessarily better. And so we ended up going to different high schools. Sophomore year, they opened up a new high school in our area. And so we went to different high schools. And then I'm not even sure if we spoke for a couple of years. I don't know. We shared a car every other week. That was a disaster. But once we went off to college, and then we'll kind of chat about the family business too and where that ended up. We actually ended up at the same college, which is a little bit funny since we went to different high schools, but we ended up at the same college at University of Colorado Boulder. Which I think
locally.
You're out there now in Colorado. We're in Southern California, which is where we originally had met. And I think once we didn't live together, we were in the same dorms, but on different floors. And then once you start really kind of exploring who you are, what you are. And we can go down the path of how we got to where we are, but we started, I think, appreciating each other a bit more. So I guess I'll start at that is, I think a lot of times in where we are today, a lot of people say, well, it's easy for you guys because you get along, but not necessarily. We've been through a lot of work to get to where we are today of now being co-presidents of MacKenzie.
Yeah, and I think I'll just kind of jump in to talk more even about that transition period. But as Jenny said, grew up, great family. Our parents were still together. We grew up in a family actually never with the concept of it being a family business per se. Both of our parents were entrepreneurs in their own right, so they each had their own businesses. So we grew up more with like entrepreneur spirit, I guess I would say. And like family business was not... In a way, we actually brought that idea to our dad. So the company that we took over, MacKenzie Corp, was our dad's company. We closed down my mom's company in 2009. And so growing up, it was great family life and all of that. And again, I think I was just chatting, my daughter's trying out for the basketball team, and there's this two twin sisters, and it was really interesting. The one sister plays all these different sports, and I was chatting with the mom there. She was trying to get the other sister to get into basketball and all this, but you could tell it just like wasn't her jam. And I was like, said to my husband, I was like, I so empathized with that girl because it wasn't my jam. And then I felt, you feel all these things, and that's the thing about high school, and you're working on forming your identity and that kind of stuff. So we are grateful for the fact that our parents understood that. Again, our mom's an identical twin, our grandfather was identical twins.
Oh, wow.
And so I think they understood that a lot of times in twin relationships, one is more of a passive twin and someone's going to be more dominating because you're right there with each other. And Jenny and I are not that way. And so it was better for all parties for us not to do that. So again, I think we came home our summer after freshman year of college and fought the whole entire time. And then neither of us came home again. And we realized that we actually started realizing that we could be friends. That's like a big thing that we talk about when we are talking about sibling partnerships in family business space, is that we eventually, I believe, as we all grow up, we can start to look as our siblings as somebody that can be our cheerleaders and our friends and our confidants and our business partners. That we don't have to, we can let go of that outdated narrative in a way of like what that relationship was and say, how is that kind of narrative still serving us? So after college, we both went different paths and different careers, and then both stumbled in and out of, I think, Dad's company once or twice, and then ended up staying there. And then really where the hard work was of starting to say, maybe we're starting to get along, but do we actually want to take the chance of like messing up the relationship that we have now with this whole concept? So for us, we worked really closely with a transition consultant that helped us do all sorts of different, like the personality tests and communications and strengths, and we each worked through being able to say, these are the types of things that I want to do, these are the types of things I don't want to do. And then we realized that actually our list of like what I didn't want to do, Jenny wanted to do, and then what I wanted to do, she didn't want to do. So it kind of organically started getting us to the path of the co-presidency concept.
So you found that dynamic of what your strengths were, and you were able to work together. I'm really interested too in this conflict too, that you didn't get along for a period of time, then you kind of came together and you found this place where you could work together very well. And I think there's an important parallel too to other businesses, other family businesses especially, where that dynamic exists. You may not get along with a sibling or a parent or something like that. How did you how could you, or can you relate that part of your life, even when you weren't into the company, to how you might help or suggest family members work through their own interpersonal conflict?
I mean, I think I can at least just get started, and then Jen, you jump in too. I truly believe that a lot of it starts with your own introspection and like really being able to do some of your own deep work of being able to say, what is my vision for myself, for my longer vision, for my my legacy? What is it that's going to light me up at the end of my life? What are the dreams that I have? And being able to, I say all the time, how do we leave the ego at the front door? Because I do believe that sometimes those rifts we are anchoring more in the desire for competition than even, I might be competing for something that I don't actually even want. I'm just competing to compete. And I believe that if we leave that ego at the door and walk through the door with a clear vision of some things that like truly light me up and knowing what my strengths are, we then can come to the table to say, oh, wait a second, like, I love the fact that you want to do X, Y, Z, and I have no desire to do that. And actually, I can support you in that, and that doesn't make me any less in the pecking order, you know? Mm-hmm. So I really think that we all just need to like be able to know what it is that we personally want, and that it's not about the sibling. I think a lot of it just comes down to that sibling competition and ego and the desire to be like the top dog in the family kind of thing. But I could be wrong. That's what I think some of it really could anchor into.
Yeah.
I think a big thing too, and maybe it's, as we got older and where we are, but a really big thing that we work through, and we work with Joanne Norton. I don't know if you had worked with her.
Oh, yeah.
All.
Yeah, I love Joanne.
She is our family.
She's our like angel on earth. We absolutely love her.
Amazing. She's still here on earth, but she's our angel. She is, we did a lot of I think it's called the appreciative inquiry. And I think that's the thing, is starting to realize, like, I'm a big picture thinker. I'm like a really big picture. Actually, Kate gave me an idea jar that's over here on my desk, because I have so many big ideas. I have all of these ideas. I'm not very fantastic at the details. I'm not really interested in, like, once I've talked about an idea, put it on my wall. I showed you before we started, my big idea wall.
Oh, yeah.
Then I'm not really interested in being in the weeds and doing these things. And when I felt bad about that for a long time and tried to compensate, but then I started realizing, well, actually, when Kate said we brought these things up, she loves a to-do list. She loves checking things off the list. She loves these things, but I had to first say, this is what I like doing, this is what I'm not very good at. So it was just being open to it, and then also realizing, because she's doing things differently, I mean, it works on our team too. I mean, we're a customer insights business, market research, we're very much in the data space. So talk about like details matter.
Oh, yeah.
And I have got some amazing, amazing team members. And every time I go into a brainstorming meeting, I'm like, you guys are just raining on my parade on every reason why this is not working. Well, then we did the strength finders and we did all these things, and I realized the reason why I can brainstorm it and do these big things is because I have an incredible team behind me thinking about every single detail of what might work, what might not work. And now I look at them, and then now it's with my sibling as well. I'm not frustrated with them that they're raining on my parades. I know that they're protecting me and they're using things. So we're trying to think of things differently, like what else might be true. It's not like she doesn't believe in me or they think my ideas are terrible. What else could be true? Oh, they're the ones thinking this. So we've just been, and that's a lot of these personality tests, what motivates us to understand ourselves and others was a very big part.
I love that. I mean, I like the idea that you approach it from the standpoint of anytime you want to address conflict, seek first to understand. It sounds like understand the Huge. Personality. Yeah. Maybe the best role, and so you found that, and you were able to, when you built that, and you were able to, did it kind of just click that you had these certain strengths, and that you could apply them in the right way, and then it just kind of flowed from there?
I think we started, in terms of then how we netted out and getting to the co-presidency side of things, I think really we started just laying out like what are all the different roles that need to happen within like running and operating business, one. And then two, again, going back to like what are our visions and the things that we want to be able to do. Our dad is an amazing man and has been an amazing dad, but he worked all the time. The time. And a lot of things that we hear, and I'm sure you hear it in the family business spaces, I don't know if I want to get involved because I don't want to be tied to the desk that many hours. I want to be able to be an involved parent. I want to be able to make it to the sports things and all that kind of stuff. And again, we never once questioned how much he cares about us and was there providing for us. But ours ended up being a yes and that was really, that also played a big thing, that we finally realized that we had the agency to decide what we wanted leadership to look like. It is an honor and a privilege to be a part of the family, of being able to decide that what that next chapter of the family legacy is going to look like. And we didn't take that lightly at all. And when we share about our story, we acknowledge that we are speaking from a place that the fact that we did come together, that we do get along, and that we don't have all these other sibling dynamics that can be into play. But what really helped was us being able to say, I want to work X amount of time in the office. I can work all different kinds of things and make it happen. And Jenny wanted to do this. And we realized that together we would make a great number one, to be able to not only achieve and lean into where our strengths are, but also to be able to live out this like vision and legacy for each of us individually. And that again is where I think coming holistically as like the multifaceted humans that we are, not coming to the table just as the family business, like where we fit into this whole thing. We just truly believe in like being able to say, what is all of what I want in my life to look like, and how do I create like a path for leadership that fits into that. So for us, we acknowledge that we are blessed to be able to do that, but that was really like a big thing that led us to the co-presidency. Now, co-presidency is not easy, and it is not right for everybody in the least bit, because then there's you can have a two-headed monster, and it is against like every rule out there. So then we could talk all about how we actually made that happen, but that was really, I think it was a mix between how does we knew that together, I always say we make a great one person, and maybe that's a part of being twins, but that combined of our strengths in that kind of way, and how do we create the whole life that we wanted to be able to be active in each parents and family members and stuff too.
I would say too, just real quick on that, is there wasn't like it was clicked and everything was perfect. So, that's what I always just wanted to make it seem, a lot of people are like, you guys have it all together. Like, just to clarify, like, we got
a lot to figure out.
Things. So it is not, it is fantastic. She's in the office right next door as we're recording this. But I also think a very big thing was that we decided that, there is a lot of people, our bankers, our lawyers, everyone says you can't do that. You can't be co-presidents. You cannot do these things. And we finally stopped and we're like, well, wait a second. This is our business. Like, we can do whatever we want to. To a certain extent. And we decided what is best for us, what's best for our family, what's best for our extended families. And so while I think, having transition consultants and having other people and all of that is fantastic, it really was then what works best for us. And the two of us coming together and not listening to, it's always been done this way. This is the way you should do it. And so we kind of threw that out and decided, well, if we get to decide, let's start there and then work backwards into what we want that to look like. So, I don't know, it was a liberating experience at the beginning, yes.
Yeah, well, that's a powerful way to look at it too. Is you do hear all that comment everywhere you hear, there can only be one number one. There can only be one person in that role. But
it'll confuse people. It doesn't make sense. It whatever. Okay. Or
And there's the times and places, maybe not for everybody, but where it does work. It worked in our business for the second generation as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we had there were four brothers. So of the founders, the founder had four sons. Okay. Four sons took it over really equally, and they didn't run it at the same time. They traded off every 4 years, kind of like our United States president. But they each, kind of to your point and how you're running it, they had their own unique strengths. One was a great operations person, one was a great salesperson, and they embraced that. And it sounds like that's kind of the way you've handled it, is you took this structure first idea, and then you just saw where the roles fit, and the roles happen to fit. Hey, we work well as a 2-person top tier team. So I love that.
And just to clarify too, I mean, we can get in the weeds of it, of how we run this business, but we do not make every single decision together. Like, there's parts of the business that Kate runs, there's part that I run, but overarching, we know where we're going. So when there's something, because then people say, well, how do you make decisions? I mean, there's for sure things that she runs and I run, and we have our lanes, I mean, so it's not that every single meeting we're in, and quite honestly, we're not in a lot of the same meetings because it doesn't make any sense for us to be there, because that doesn't make sense. So you can still have decision makers even if there's 2 people at the top. It doesn't mean that they have to hold hands and agree on everything.
Yeah. And I'd love to explore a little bit more how that dynamic works too. But like, maybe for context, can you give a little background on the company, MacKenzie Corporation? I'd love to just hear a little more about what you guys do and how it started.
So MacKenzie it'll be 40 years next year, which is amazing. I know you're like 100 and something years, so someday maybe we will get there. But MacKenzie started actually in the bonus room of our house, so growing up, so it literally was in our house. We're a customer insights business, and we help companies. Typically we work with sales and marketing leaders, and we help them figure out who their customers are, how to find them, how to find more of them, how to stay in touch with them. We started in the power sports space, which a lot of people say, I didn't know that you work with motorcycles, boats, ATVs, those types of things. So probably the first 20, 25 years of our business was in that space, which is fun. And so just think of working with sales guys and helping them figure out where to sell more motorcycles, how to find them, and really understanding the data behind it. And we talk about how dads kind of caught lightning in a bottle 40 years ago to dig into the data space, data analytics, predictive modeling, that type of thing. So we're in that space, which is really fun. Fast forward, we still do a lot in the power sports space, but really working in a wide variety of industries, healthcare, real estate, sports. We work with a lot of nonprofits, and helping people figure out how to stay in touch with their customers, how to find more of them. So we're not the creative agency, but we work with a lot of creative agencies. We humanize and help people figure out the people that they're serving, which is a fun business. So we've grown and evolved the business over time because you have to, and it's been an interesting transition, I guess I'll just say. We can dig more into that, but
I'll even just to piggyback on that really quick, and I think it goes a lot with family business thing, is like, how do you honor the past and that whole narrative of like, this is the way we've always done things, but honoring the past and then innovating for the future. And even in the beginning when we were first getting involved in the company, I'd say 2009, 2010, that type of thing. And Dad was starting to talk about, he was really talking about closing the doors and just being done and retiring in X number of years. And so we had brought the idea to him. But so when we first got involved and really more in that leadership space, we were continuing to do things the exact same way that he had, because we felt like it was the way we were supposed to. But then Jenny and I knew 2 different things. One is that it didn't feel authentic in the way of leading the business, and some of the services that we had been doing had been amazing. Like Jenny said, that it was like catching lightning in a bottle, but technology, data, just all sorts of different types of things were just increasing at such a rapid pace. And if we continued doing things the same way, we wouldn't still be around. I don't even know if we would today. And so it's an interesting balance that comes from the honoring the way that things have been done. And so really that it's coming back to what is the core mission and values and vision for it. It's not always having to be like, this is the exact commodity or service. It's being able to do that. And then we also finally said to ourselves, that we truly believe that honoring his legacy is being able to innovate it in a way that feels authentic to us so that it moves on for the next X number of years. Because if we continue to do something that doesn't feel authentic, the company won't continue. It just fundamentally won't. And so, again, that comes back from taking ownership of saying, like, this doesn't feel right to us, but we feel super proud of, like, the foundation that we have, and we want to evolve it into something that feels that we're more jazzed up about and things like that. So it's It's kind of its own evolution process that comes from the next generation coming into leadership.
But we definitely grew up in the business. We have both data entered. I can't tell you how many customers have first back in the day, open the mail, data enters, surveys. I mean, that is, but getting in touch with people. And so we no longer mail paper surveys. But let me tell you, Kate and I have wholeheartedly data entered more surveys than I know what to do with, and enter comments. Yes.
Oh yeah. I don't think you have the whole family business experience unless you've started at those really grunt level jobs.
Our first job in high school, everyone was going to work at the beach or Wild Rivers, and we were data entering customer satisfaction surveys for motorcycles. Yes.
Oh man, Wild Rivers brings me back. Wow.
Right? Dude, Wild Rivers is open again here.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's moved, but it's close. It's still right over here.
That's crazy. Okay, well that's good to know. And yeah, to everybody listening in Arkansas, you'll never know what we're talking about, but if you grew up in Orange County, you'll know.
You know what Wild Rivers is. Yes.
I forgot you grew up here, because in the Irvine Amphitheater, I mean, it was all.
Oh yeah, all before condos, it was actually something pretty spectacular.
I knew you were from here. That's how you know.
Right.
What was it? Lion Country Safari was back in the day too. But,
well, I mean, that's kind of like true with like the legacy aspect of it. And I love the idea of the legacy, because there's an important thing that people tend to miss on the legacy aspect, is that it's a two-way street. It's you do want to honor the legacy of the founder of the previous generations, but you also have to build it for the future. That's the two-way street of it.
100%.
And
it's reimagining what that looks like and what part are we holding on to. I mean, in family businesses, it's like, you can't move that picture because it's always been there. Well, okay, but why and what? So, I mean, we still, at our core, we help people understand the people that they serve. I mean, the people that buy their products, service, and experiences, we help them better understand those people. Whether or not it was a paper survey back in the day, or now we're doing it in new, innovative, creative ways, the core of what we're doing is still the same. We're just doing the service in different ways now, through foresight work and through online communities and different things like that. And so it's just, what are you holding on to? Like, what are you defining as your legacy is an interesting piece there. And then then what's your unique role in that is a different piece of the story. Yes.
Yeah. There's so many directions we could take this, and I love this conversation. There's parts of it where, you're entering into the business, back in the 2009-ish, like when you were saying, Katie, and what was that like, finding your identity, like in the business? Like, hey, it's like finding your voice. Like, what, especially amidst the idea that you grew up in this business that was started in your bonus room. I'm not going to do the math on how old you are, but you had to have been very young when that happened, right?
Yes.
And so what was it like finding your unique identity when you got into leadership?
It's interesting. I mean, I'll jump in, and then Jen, kind of go from there. So we had a team member leave. So we are blessed with some long-term legacy team members here. And so when Trudy retired, I guess it was it must have been 2019. It was right before COVID. She started in the company when we were 9. So when we started, and my first job was actually her file clerk, assistant. So I was bottom of the barrel working for her. And then we slowly started learning more and staying, even in that time, I was in a coordinator role, but then we're having more meetings with our dad and then meeting with our general manager, starting to understand the business side, accounting, finance, and all of that. And asking more questions, and then slowly we're moving in. I mean, I will say, and a lot of times, and we love our team and again are so grateful for their commitment to us, but it is interesting when you do this succession plan and that transition of leadership, a lot of times the focus is on how does the outgoing generation, how is our dad going to handle it? I haven't heard as much of the talk of how does the legacy team members handle it. So our general manager did not stay very long after we stepped into official leadership role. It got quite toxic quite fast. And that was we had really wanted him to stay and to be there, but he was not on board at all. And that other woman who I said, Trudy, who had been with us for forever. I mean, she's such a dear friend of ours still, but I really pushed for like a major culture shift. I mean, we used to not do staff meetings. Everything was very in silos and very individualized. We were very much more collaborative. It's, in the name actually of our other company that we'll talk about in a little bit. We just do things in a different way. I believe in I'm all about efficiency. I'm like, if we could all get in a room in like 15 minutes, hear the exact same thing and make a decision and move on instead of going and talking to every person. And then we did strength finders and motivators and all sorts of different kinds of things so we could get to know our team members for the people that they were today, not like the people that we grew up watching around the office, and that they could get to know us. But Trudy was like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like, I am not picking up what you're putting down here at all. And we had to have some really tough conversations. And our big thing is we fully acknowledge and appreciate the fact that our team was hired by our dad, and they spent 20 plus years working for him. And we were a small company here, and he had a totally different way of doing business than we did. And it's okay if our style, because I used to always say, I was like, I'm not good at this leadership thing. And then I finally realized we have our own unique way of leadership, and it's not for everybody. And so then it has
She came around. She
did come around. She actually, because like once you start to say, hey, see this issue that you're having here, I said, did you look at so-and-so's strengths? Because then I gave them all, and I had them like work through a worksheet. And I said, if you actually communicate in this way, I said, I don't know, just like in a little experiment, try it next time. Then she came back, she's like, oh my God, that was so much better. I was like, I know. And then, and doing things where like we're going head to head. I'm all about like, again, as I said earlier, we are multifaceted people. And I truly, for me and Jenny both, we want to create a space and a culture within our organization where people can show up as their whole selves and that they can feel supported in whatever it is that they need. We always say family comes first, and that doesn't mean the vibrant family. Like, it just means like if you got to pop off this podcast right now because you got to pick your kid up for whatever reason, there's no questions. Like, you just go do you. But we can't support if we're not showing up and sharing our whole selves in that sense. So we did have a couple things where people were going head to head, and I was like, I'm going to get a little feely here, but I'm going to say this is happening and this is happening, and maybe that's why we're not getting along. Yeah. And then they started to like realize. So again, it takes time. I would say it probably took probably even like 5-6 years. Culture change, leadership change, succession planning. Like they say, it's a minimum of 7 years for it to be done the right way, and that is true. I mean, it's just you can't move a ship really fast and have everybody in like 24 hours be like on board for the next.
I think that one of the things, I mean, Kate's big piece, because I think your question is like, how do we find our voice? Kate's really big was around culture and shifting and changing. I mean, hers definitely was a hard thing. So it definitely took a while. There were some blank stares, like, what are you doing? Why are we doing this? But I would say consistently going forward, she knew that this was what she wanted to do, and there was a reason why. Like, so I always say we don't want to do change for change's sake. So I will just say, it's not like today I'm going to decide this is my role and people are all going to accept it. Like, it took repetition. I think the same thing that I'm in sales and marketing. I had new ideas. Hey, we should change. We should come up with these new ways of thinking. We introduced strategic foresight in the future into a data world. I did have one woman say to me, Jenny, if you could just tell me where all the data is on the future, then I could report on it and it would be perfect. I'm like, well, just to clarify, the future has not happened yet. So it was like they could not get their heads around it because it's not black and white. And how does that fit in? But I just stayed consistent. We kept doing projects. We kept figuring things out. And so I would just say we knew what we wanted, and we had to consistently show up. And some things didn't work. I mean,
that's why some
things, and it was like, well, and then
we also owned that. Yeah. Like we would go in on like the culture side or new product ideas, and we would say, we're going to try this out. We're going to try it for a long enough period and do it within, again, that's why Jenny has the idea jar. Cause I'm like, listen, we're not like going to be a new idea every week and like run people in like circles. So then Jenny would have to go through the filter of Jenny, like, what are we taking off the list if you're going to put this in, and justify and all that kind of stuff. But we also would like say, listen, we are open to feedback, not just to hear that you don't like it. Like, we got to like work through it, and we're willing to admit things weren't going to work, and like own that. And that is a interesting thing even about like the finding your voice and getting back to that kind of point. You have to have thick skin as you're coming in, and you know that as that next generation leader. Like, we will make mistakes. We will do things, we will try, and we will make mistakes. And in a way, you're failing publicly. Now, I mean, that may not be outside of your company, but your legacy team members, your team members, they are watching and waiting, you know?
Yeah.
And so you have to own it and like say like, hey, listen, I'm proud of myself and proud of all of us for trying something new. This one didn't work, but what lessons can we learn? What can we take from it? Why? And those types of things. And, you know, and know when to like jump ship on some ideas and not just keep pushing it again. It's because the ego, you don't want to have to like take that. So I think the whole thing is just, I don't know, life's an experiment anyway, right? Like trying to get by.
That's a great insight. Yeah, life is an experiment. Why not? I mean, and you're right though. It's like, but going into that role with somebody leading for so long and growing up in the business. I mean, I remember coming into, you know, my leadership role. It was like, I feel like I have to be quote unquote Gen 3 Part 2. Or maybe it's Gen 1 Part 2 for you. And then, but you realize that square peg in the round hole doesn't fit, and you just have to kind of embrace it. It's hard. It's painful, but worth it. And it sounds like it's worth it. It was worth it to you.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, and again, and like the full transparency, because we talk about the messy middle all the time. I cried a lot, and I'm not really a crier. I would get in my car and I would like leave and then not come back for like 2 weeks and all sorts of things. I mean, I quit more times than like I want to admit.
Sure did, yes.
But I would come back and like, and that's the thing. It's just the like realizing and the learning, and that's whether that's figuring out the partnership between Jenny and I, figuring out communication styles with our dads. There's certain things that like I realized that that wasn't healthy for me in terms of communication styles. But again, putting the ego aside, I finally then said to Jenny, hey, while this is like my kind of like domain of where I work, I would love to set you up to have this conversation with Dad on my behalf. And so we like learned to be able to do that. And then same thing, like some days just the working with the team, it was like, I'm out of here. And then it was like, wait a second, this is my company. I'm going to come back again. And then like, you know, so it's every day is not easy. It's just, again, it's that consistency and like needing to stay true to yourself of like making sure that this is like the type of leadership style that is going to feel authentic to you.
Yeah.
I think what's really important too is realizing, more just this comes back to, I'm going to be, you know, Kate and I are twins, and so a lot of people would assume that we're the same, right? And like that we need like the same motivators, and like we grew up, I mean, literally, because, you know, I mean, I've got 2 girls and they're so different. I mean, they're 4.5 years apart. So I can see why they're different about things. But I mean, we grew up with the same parents and the same environment and the same whatever. So you would think that very similar, but like certain things trigger her and don't trigger me. Certain things like light her up, other things don't. And it wasn't until we started, she needs like words of affirmation for like, hey, you're doing a great job. I don't need that kind of thing. I'm more like, you know, acts of service for something. So I didn't know that I needed to give that to her of what she needed. And so it was this just amazing thing of starting to realize what we need and then asking for what you need and not assuming. Because Kate, I think you had a sticky note for a long time on your desk or door, might still be there, but assume positive intent. You know, like, well, she doesn't think I'm doing a good job because she's not telling me. Like, I didn't know I had to tell her she was doing a good job. It wasn't even on my radar because I don't need to hear that. So I think there's just something in family businesses that we know the right buttons to push, but we're also assuming that what we need is what other people need. If there's space, if I come in hot on something, she now is like, is something happening? Because
you got something going on that I don't think has to do with me.
Flat out assuming, well, it must be about the project that I'm working on. She must not trust me about this. And I'm like, dude, listen, my husband, we just had something, you know, or whatever it is. It has nothing to do with anything. You know, it could be that I hit all the red lights on the way to work. And so I feel like, but we automatically go to, she must not trust me. This is the way it is. And so it's like this just reframing. So I just kind of wanted to, that we back to this, and then we kind of move on to the point, but like finding our unique voice and realizing what we bring, but we have to be aware enough to even say, this is what I need, this is what I want, those kind of things. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, and I know I get trapped in that a lot of just trying to interpret what people are thinking or what's going on in their lives. It's always about, what I said or did. Yeah, it's always a challenge, especially within families. And I'm curious, so when you transitioned into your roles, or you mentioned the closing of the business now is officially yours 50-50, right? So was that, and do you mind if I ask how that transaction happened? Was it a buyout? How did you transition it?
Yeah, so our dad, which we had 96%, so he retained 4% right out the gate when we took over. So we took legal ownership of the company, I think in 2012, December of 2012. And he's, he always said like he was going to be the tiebreaker and be able to help these different kinds of things. And so, and he has not been, when he transitioned out, I guess it was 2013, then we went into a 5-year employment contract with him. And so he stayed as an employee with special projects and those types of things till 2018. And then he's been out of the company since then, out of the day-to-day, working on every once in a while some consulting help with things. But this one actually, he came to us because Jenny and I both just said like, we don't want to be thinking. So the initial transition was actually a gifting of that, and then the employment contract kind of helped with some of the compensation side of things. This one with the 4%, then he came to us. It came as like a 5 p.m. Friday night email, and I was like, I don't know about that one. Those ones that kind of slip in. And I just said, hey, thank you. Like, so interesting to bring this up. We would love
to buy out the last 4%.
Yes, we would love to talk, but I think that's more of like, let's have a family meeting, because it also is, again, with family, what's the underlying, like what pinged this conversation? We have not talked anything about that, and so it came from somewhere, and so we were trying just to figure some things out with him. And so that then we purchased the last 4% from him, and so did that final transition of it. So and that, we appreciate, he just said, he's like, you guys don't need me at this point, in that sense, like let's just be fully dad and kids at this point instead of being
it does keep up that little bit left,
that little bit that you still, every decision like we are making and deciding like where we want to invest in and innovate in, and Jenny and I are really passionate about starting to look at things more from just the operating business, which is what our parents had really done, and being able to say, how can we turn it into more of like a family enterprise? Like, what are some different things? Can we be investing in some different types of businesses or different types of things? And so with that now, we can make that decision just equally between the two of us, instead of still wanting to say like, well, what percent is his and how do we help, bring him into those conversations? So
I love that. That's and that's so wise to like actually ask the question and dig in. Well, what are the motivations here? Okay,
that one I was like, we're not just going to say yes and an email at 5:05. Like, there is something, there's something here. And I think in family business, well, in family in general, but it is interesting. There's things that just get said and stuff like actually he said recently, he's like, well, you pushed me out of the company. I was like, oh, can we just unpack that one for a second? I said, so weird, because you actually talked to us about how we took over in the transition, and you crafted your own employment contract. So I'm not really sure how that is us pushing you out. And he's like, no, I didn't mean that. It was a total joke and whatever. And I said, well, I think also within these types of things can be said in passing, and maybe one party says it more as like a joke, but other parties can be like, you start to internalize that and say, wait, is there confusion around the narrative? So again, that's like where we're at now too, is just being able to say, hey, I'd love to like pause on that one. Can we unpack what you really mean? Or there was something our mom used to always say, and then finally Jenny had a conversation with her and said, I don't think that that's true, and that doesn't, it's hurtful, And she said, that's not what I mean. I actually think it is a sign of respect and whatever. And she's like, I don't know how anyone would interpret that as a respectful way, but like, if you do, okay, but can we not say that anymore, because it doesn't make us feel good. So, it's an interesting thing, right? I mean, and that's, again,
it's not just in family business. I'll say it's in family, but I will give Kate a lot of credit that she now does a lot of these kind of pausing moments. Other times she's like, that one wasn't worth it. Like, I let that one go. If things continue to go up, because the thing is, then these stories get told. I mean, in families, it's so wild of if that story was told that we pushed him out, then this and then this, then you start, then it's perception is everything. I mean, that's what we do in our work perception. And if that's
Perception's
your
reality, I mean,
perception,
that's what it is.
then you're going to make decisions, and then you're going to make decisions. And now we've based all of these decisions based on something that was a misunderstanding to begin with. So it's just as interesting. I mean, it happens in regular families, and then put family and business together. And no wonder the succession rates are low.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's a pretty clear indicator. So I will give Katie credit that she pauses a lot more. She has gotten me a lot more comfortable with uncomfortable conversations, and now they're not uncomfortable. Like that's the thing, is they're not uncomfortable.
That's like even why I have on my door, and that can be even to my own team, assume positive intent. Because people are like, sometimes you can just be so hard and like whatever, straight to the point. I'm like, I don't really think that there's like, it's a waste of time to like beat around the bush and like play certain types of things. I'm like, let's just talk because we're all adults here and like just have the conversation, because we spend so much mental space and energy sometimes spinning on things that if we actually could be brave enough to say like, hey, can you just help me understand? I am like a huge fan of Brene Brown, and her Rumble Starters and Dare to Lead is like my favorite. Like, can you help me understand XYZ, or the story that I'm telling myself when I hear this is, and different kinds of things. I think there's so many tools out there to be able to have conversations that don't come, because the longer we wait to have some of these uncomfortable conversations, generally we're going to blow up at some point, right? We're going to come out defensively or on like in the attack mode, where if we actually say it in like the moment and saying, wait a second, can you help me understand that one a little bit more? Because what I just heard was, or how I interpreted that was, and then you're clarifying it in the moment, and then everybody can move on. So, you know, again, this is like 15 years of solid work. So.
Yeah, right. Right. Which is why these conversations are so valuable, because, you know, we learn from people who've been through it like yourselves for years and years and years. And now you're taking that energy and you're turning it into something that is empowering other family businesses that may be going through similar experiences. The Next Gen Collaborative, which is a really, really cool thing. I mean, just to bring your knowledge and experience of how you've experienced from going, from a first to second generation company and running that to helping other businesses, navigate some of those family dynamics and challenges. So can you talk a little bit about that, what you're doing there and how you're helping people?
Yeah, Kate, you want to talk about Next Gen, or you want me to?
Sure. So at Next Gen, we're really, our big thing, and like I'd say, like our main area of focus is
we launched a second
Next Gen Collaborative. Yeah, we launched last February. So we do one-on-one personal coaching, speaking, facilitation of like Next Gen retreats. We're doing a Next Gen retreat with the Prairie Family Business Association in the beginning of October, a 2-day Next Gen retreat. Actually, they're doing cocktails at Mount Rushmore. So if you have any Next Gens listening here, come and join us. But really with that is all about empowering Next Gen family business leaders to find their voice and write their sequel. And really it comes back to everything that we're talking about here, that power of really identifying your unique perspectives, having a clear idea of what your personal legacy is. We see that as a living, breathing document, right? I mean, you and I have talked, Adam, on different occasions. There's some things that I've recently done that like 10 years ago I never would have written down as a part of like a legacy vision. So our lives expand and grow, but we truly believe that like having some sort of sense of direction with that sense of legacy and where we prioritize our dreams, that's where our legacy is going to build out to, and being able to empower next gens to have some sort of clear vision so that then when they get to the table for these succession plannings, that they can feel confident and empowered to be able to speak up for themselves of like what they want to achieve. So really it's something that like we're so passionate about, because a lot of times, and what we hear is next gens are like, I don't know if I feel like dealing with this, but and so we want to inspire people to stay in the family business, to know that there's some paths, innovation can happen, and all sorts of really awesome things can happen within the family business, and you can still achieve personal goals at the same time. I mean, I think you, Adam, are a shining example of that, of like everything that you're doing personally and running your 100-year-old business, you know? And so for us, we don't believe that it should be an either or, that there really is this like and opportunity, and we want to inspire people to lean into that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and likewise, yeah, both of you are achieving amazing things beyond that. And if you don't believe it, listen to Flow Over Fear, previous episode with Katie Rucker. You'll hear a lot of those things too. And Jenny, same. I mean, just to see the amount of things that you're doing is incredible. And so, yeah, sorry, Jenny, go ahead, please.
No, I mean, it's such a fun space. The thing that's really, really amazing is when we start just thinking, well, one, we felt very alone 15 years ago, and Kate kind of alluded to it, that we grew up with entrepreneur parents. So we didn't know we were a family business. Like, it wasn't even a thing. We didn't even know that there was a community of family businesses here in Orange County. Then we, you know, that's where we met Adam, is at the Center for Family Businesses over at Cal State Fullerton. But now, being connected with family businesses across the U.S., I mean, it's so big, but there's so many family businesses out there and next-gen leaders that feel alone and don't realize that there's support for them. And the best thing about being in a community is hearing stories from other people. I mean, some of our very best friends, I mean, we even get together and say, how do you handle this? And what about this? It's just even knowing that we're not alone. Oh yeah, no, it's hard to talk to your dad about money, and it's hard to do these things. So to have a community has been amazing. It's also been amazing to then, for us to reimagine what family business could look like. And so for us, and Kate was kind of alluding to it, is, you know, the narrative is, if you're in a family business and it's all this, like, how many of them stay in the next generation, you know, in succession. And so is it, for the family business, it's got to stay the same way. You got to do it exactly the way. I mean, I could never, and I did for a while. I sat in a cube, I did data entry, and I could not do what my dad does. He's the quintessential definition of a data nerd, and that is like, and God bless him and our team members that are, but I can't do it that way. Right. Well, why can't I take my strengths as a marketer and a salesperson and all that and bring that to our business and shift and change it? My roles can be different. Why don't we become a family enterprise instead of just a family business? And now, if my kids want to do surveys or not, I don't care, but we're creating generational opportunities. And now we're creating a family enterprise, and it just loosens things up a little bit to say, wait a sec, I could come in there and I could do all these different types of things. And so it's just been really amazing, the conversations that we've been having about reimagining what this can do. I mean, we're a well-funded startup, so there's so many young people that want to do their own things. They want to be entrepreneurs, they want to whatever. Well, why can't you do that within the family business? So that's what we're most excited about. I still want family businesses to be there, but I want them to be reimagined so we can keep them going.
That's so brilliant. I mean, I love that idea because you're almost transcending the idea of the family business being the center of the family. Now you're creating this like multifaceted, enterprise that gives all sorts of that satisfies all sorts of interests.
Yes.
And
yes.
yeah, you have a great asset there that can fund additional opportunities.
And then you're not fighting over then
Yes.
the whole point of, because the whole thing is, the biggest issue that family businesses deal with is succession planning. Who makes it to the top? Why don't you have 4 presidents of 4 different businesses? Why don't you then spin off as something else? Why don't you have a family office for somebody that's really into that? And so then that's the problem sometimes, is we're so fixated on the problem that if we reimagine it, that's not actually even a problem anymore. And we've created so many opportunities. So this whole piece of Next Gen Collaborative is so fun to just get people to like shift their mindset, open up the world to new possibilities. And then they need idea jars because there's too many.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to start like a product line of like
You need a
jars.
Kate? I'm going to launch a product of idea jars.
All right, you heard it here. Our third company is going to be a product line of idea jars.
That's right.
See?
Yeah, if you get anything from this program, it's set up an idea jar in your company.
Go to Next Gen Collaborative, and there's going to be idea jars for sale at some point soon.
Send Katie a ton of money and just set up an idea jar. That's it.
Yes, a Kickstarter. We need a family, there's all these VCs out there. Why don't we have a family business fund? Why don't we have, there's so many amazing.
We have so many ideas. We want to do like a job where we send our kids, why can't I send my kids to Hill Brothers for like an internship? Like, how do we create this conglomerate where our kids can go into different family businesses and intern amongst each other? I don't know. We have a million ideas under Next Gen Collaborative, and it's really fun. But mainly it's coaching and really being able to. Ours is how do we just keep people jazzed up and inspired, and to know that we can lean into the agency that we have over our lives, and that like being able to dream big can help us accomplish like so much in there, that we don't have to feel like it has to be the same, like outdated traditions and status quo. Like lean into our agency to challenge that. And I do believe that subsequent generations, if we as next gens come in inspired and excited and have been thoughtful in what we're wanting to talk about, right? Not like, you know, every idea is a great idea, but being able to explain the why and how it ties back to the family values and like what it is that we want to accomplish and why we want to do that and the purpose and all of that. I believe that our prior generations will be jazzed up. Like a lot of it too, from that G1 to G2, that's like tapping into our parents' entrepreneur spirit. Like they started the company, or our grandparents did. Like, so again, it's thinking about how we can also have conversations and communicate with each other in a different way, but really leaning into like passion, purpose, visions for legacy. That's what we could talk for the next hour and a half, so you can cut us off.
Oh no. We will have to talk about that for another hour at some point, because that whole legacy idea, there's so much there, and I think it's so profound what you're doing, what you're suggesting, because there's so much vision in the sense that you're creating this ecosystem of family businesses that can really define what they want out of the future of their legacy, and that it could be a multifaceted, its own microeconomy, so to speak, of their own business, because it doesn't have to just be anchored in this one business and these few traditions that were founded 100 years ago. No, it can be bred for the future and the legacy of the next 7 generations. It's beautiful. So just kind of touching on the legacy, I do want to tease that a little bit more, though, so that we can maybe tease it for like our next conversation that we have. How do you define what legacy should look like? Are we looking backwards at the founder generation and trying to see how we can maintain those principles, or are we looking forward at the next generations and what that looks like and that evolution looks like, or is it some combination of the two?
Yes and. In my mind, it's kind of like this tree. It's like the roots of what we have, of like what got us here. And that's the thing. If there's like this foundation, but then we get to decide what we want to bring forward. There are certain things that we don't have to. Sometimes it's like, that was that quote. It's like, things are heavy right now because you're not supposed to still be carrying them. Like, what can we say thank you for that? Like, thank you so much, and this is what got us here. But what do we need to be doing going forward? I also think it's very, very important. There's like your family legacy of what that is, of like what you want to be bringing forward. But we each have our own personal legacy. That's the thing that I think it's okay, and I don't think people talk about this enough. It's okay to have your own personal legacy next to the family business. Katie and I's legacies for this business will be drastically different. The changes that she made, what she did, going to Everest, doing some wild things. I am not that at all. I have a completely different legacy. But then Kate said the Vivrette legacy, right? When my dad started, what our maiden names is. But, so I think it's okay, and then say, we're not going to bring that forward anymore. We can still honor that. When you know better, you do better. I just think like, it doesn't mean we have to bring every single thing forward. Like, we have a choice, and we should come together to say, what do we want? We do it. I just was at a nonprofit. I'm a president of a nonprofit board, and we said, what do we want the purpose of this board to be? What is our role? What did we do 20 years ago, and what do we want to bring forward? Like, we should be doing that all the time. You don't have to say, oh man, we used to mail paper surveys in the fax machine. Like, we had a very good office space moment. We took the fax machine out. It was really
fun. It was quite fun.
We did not come to our new office. I probably just aged myself with that office reference there, but we don't have to bring the fax machine with us. Like, it's okay. It's okay.
Right.
I think a big thing around even with that question, and again, it keeps coming back to what is at our core as individuals, what do we want our own story to be? What do we want to be known for at the end? What's going to light us up, and how do we want to be remembered? And then within the family business space, and with our families just in general, again, speaking from a privileged spot of the fact that we do have a very wonderful, loving family and those types of things, but I think that we have to just in general as humans also is like go through life with gratitude and empathy and understanding that we're all at different spots. And so when we want to say, hey, we no longer want to do things this way, when we stopped doing, even if Jen kind of jokes around with the stop doing paper surveys, that actually for us was saying no to some very large projects because we made the decision going forward that we weren't going to do something. We had to then understand the impact that that was going to have on some of our team members and whatever. And we wanted it to not come across as saying, these ideas are so outdated, which means you're outdated and that you aren't relevant anymore, right? We have to think about how we're communicating in those types of things. And I think that being able to really highlight the gratitude that we have for the foundation or the roots, as Jenny was saying, for these trees, we would not be here today if it wasn't for the hard work and all of the effort and all of the decisions that our dad and our team made before us. And now we want to be able to be laying the foundation for the next stage of that. So that's how I see a lot of like the looking backwards, and then to be able to say, how do we take those certain parts of things? And again, as personal legacies, adventure and nature are two of my core. My parents are like, I don't know where you came from. I'm like, you met on a safari in Africa. Like literally they met on a safari in Africa. I'm like, I'm not sure why you're questioning why I'm going to Nepal backpacking, because you literally did. And they were like, oh, that's right. And I said,
that's the funny thing.
I learned these things from you, but they forget about it. And I said, so my legacy and how I want to be remembered for achieving these pretty big, huge adventures came from the founding of our family, of them coming together, but then they forgot about that. So it actually is, I keep saying, I wouldn't have this sense of adventure if it wasn't for you guys. Now, maybe the last 20 years you haven't done that type of adventure, but I'm going to bring it back for us, you know? So I think there's a balance between it. And again, it's coming back from like what are our own personal, and then with that, like, do you start historically and move backwards? I think it's a fluid thing, right?
Yeah. Well, that's it. And that's, yeah, it totally is a fluid thing. I mean, it's something that has to change. The idea of legacy as it's going forward, it has to evolve. If it doesn't, you know, I mean,
there was an article that I found that was an HBR article. I'll have to find it. I can send it to you. And it had a quote in there, which I'm not going to say the right way, but it was talking about how legacy can be seen as the burden for this current generation, because you are having to be the steward, and your whole being can become being the steward of someone else's dreams. And that is then that is the impetus of what we want to try to transform. I want to be able to continue to be able to honor the story and the legacy of my parents, but not at the sacrifice of my own dreams. And if we look at legacy just from the sense of stewardship, and that I am stewarding and having to protect your version of your dreams, that then becomes a huge burden. And then that's where you're going to have all sorts of issues within family business as well, because that's where resentment will come in, and not feeling that you can like fully be yourself and grow and achieve your own goals.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
I can't imagine with a 100-year-old company, Adam. So that's all.
It's all resonate. I mean,
well, another thing, we work really well in the G1 to G2 world. You can take that G3 plus.
Well, I think kind of tying it back to the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned it. You maintain that entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that's kind of the key within legacy businesses through 100 years and 4 generations. If you lose touch with that entrepreneurial spirit, I think that's where the legacy starts to die.
Yeah.
You need to keep having it every generation. I don't remember where I heard this, but I recently interviewed somebody where we were talking about this idea of every generation has to be generation 1.
Ooh, I love that.
Yes.
I love that.
I stole it, and I don't remember where I stole it from.
That's okay. So. You're giving credit to the ethos.
The universe, but yeah.
I like it.
I appreciate you both so much. I mean, it's just I just so love the conversations that we're having, what you're doing, what you're building, because the vision that you have around what family business can be is incredible. And I believe in what you're doing. I believe in what you're creating and what family businesses can be. And if people believe in that as well and want to get in touch with you and find out how they can work with the Next Gen Collaborative, how do they find you?
Yeah, so nextgencollaborative.com would be where we have a lot of information. Jenny and I are both extremely active on LinkedIn. So if you just look either of our names, that's really, you're going to be able to like hear our voice and understand like what we're passionate about. This is what we speak about all day, every day, because it is the soapbox that we are like so passionate about being on. So I'd say follow us on LinkedIn, and we'll definitely connect there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. Jenny.
Thank you, Adam. We're going to see you hopefully soon in California or somewhere at one of these conferences. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will be out there next week, in fact, at one of the Cal State Fullerton Family Business Council meetings. And love it. So, but yeah, I'd love to connect. I'm so grateful that you wanted to connect here and share your wisdom with the audience here. What you're
We're
doing
excited
is
for your podcast.
Thanks.
Love hearing family business stories. So this is, I think it's amazing the work that you're doing. I mean, the Fearless Family Business, yes. Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing what you do, and to everyone else listening out there, thank you for joining us. If you like this episode and you think somebody can resonate with it, share it with a friend, and make sure you subscribe and rate and do all those things to make sure that we spread the message of what family business can become. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Fearless Family Business Show. If you're enjoying this show, please thumbs up this episode and subscribe wherever that subscribe button is. And you'll get more family business education and insights in your inbox. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, a colleague, a spouse, your mom, your dad, a second cousin, whomever you think might benefit from hearing this show. And if you're in a family business and you've got a great story to share, contact me, because I would love to see if you'd be a great fit for this show. I'd love to interview you. Or if you're struggling in your family business to find your unique identity or voice, or you need an injection of new life into your family business, I'd also love to hear from you. I'd love to learn more about you, and I'd love to see if I can help. Simply email me at adam@fearlessfamilybusiness.com, and we'll get you connected to the right place. Together, we can elevate the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle we all experience in our family businesses. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.